Good morning and welcome back to Morning Express. We're glad you're watching on this Thursday. It's the 2nd day of April and it's time for State of the Nation. Mike's seat is going down.
My chair is just going down. Today is one of those days. So what I'm going to do right now is just pull it up and sit back. And yeah, this is the state of the nation, or rather the state of the studio right now. And today, Sophia, you're very happy. I don't know whether it's a pre-Easter joy, but yeah, now my seat is okay.
It is good.
On.
Imagine you're on air with someone and they start going down.
Keep getting shorter. That has nothing to do with my weight, by the way. It's just the chair. It is just the chair.
I think Fitness Thursday, which is coming up later on today on Lifestyle, is a good, you know, he's been part of those workouts. So I think it's the workouts, you know, they're just sinking in.
All right, we shall swiftly move on. And on State of the Nation, we'd like to introduce our panel this morning. And I'll start off with Mr. Henry Minor, Director of Article 19. Great to have you in the studio.
Great to have you too.
And welcome. Then next to him, we have Millie Odhiambo, who is the MP from Mbita.
Thank
Karibu
you.
sana, Mheshimiwa. And last but not least, we have Jeremiah Kioni, who's the former MP for Ndaragwa. Welcome, Mheshimiwa. And yeah, the State of the Nation.
Indeed, the State of the Nation. Let's begin with yesterday, and I'll throw this at you, Henry, first, because we see this press conference and Kano coming out and saying there are powerful people behind in the presidency that are trying to get us out. And this, of course, translated means you get her out after Nsongo has resigned, the EAC has to be reconstituted. Talk to us about when you heard these particular sentiments coming from the EACC. What do you make of how this is shaping up?
I first of all asked myself, are we sincere in the fight against corruption as a country? And if we are we thinking that there are certain people who would help us deliver certain outcomes that might not be what the bigger population expects? So that was my first struggle. But I also remembered that the president, in his address to Parliament, pointed out that he had received a complaint against two of the commissioners, so the chair and the vice. And in this situation, pressure was being mounted on perhaps the only other safe commissioner, Jen Onsonko, who would remember was part of the previous team. So in terms of history of the commission, she was the only one surviving there who has done lots of work before on most of those cases. Yeah. So one, there was a clear process to try and do away with institutional memory. And that begins to tell us that the old corruption cases, we want to sweep them under the carpet and pretend that now we are dealing with the new cases and we have a new resolve to deal with those ones. So that's my first challenge. But the second challenge is that we are all clear that corruption is endemic in this country and that certain people have been involved. But the two signals we are sending, at one point I listened to the president and I said, oh, now we have a clear resolve that we want to fight corruption. But immediately after that, I had noticed that the CS Agriculture had nominated or appointed the former MP of Nambale, Crisanta Zokemo, to be the chair of Kenya Seed Company. So the first thing I told myself, here is a government without a single policy on fighting corruption.
Well, of course, we know that story has since changed.
Yes, but Okemo
and he as well,
is the one who had to call to say, I'm not taking up the position. Yeah. It wasn't government saying.
But this was after there was a directive that that be rescinded as well.
Who gave the direction? By who? The minister has not gazetted to say, I'm resigning that. So this idea that they can come back to the press after it's been questioned, questions the process. Do we have a clear policy that we want to fight corruption?
All right, let's come to Millie. State of the Nation address. The president says what we're seeing happening at the time at EACC was corruption fighting back. Then now you have allegations saying that it is in fact people in the presidency that are trying to get these officials out to reconstitute the EACC. What do you make of this?
What I would want to say is actually things are getting pretty murky. And some of us who had so much faith on the day the president spoke and gave him a standing ovation are beginning to lose faith. And the reason we are beginning to lose faith is because it looks like we are beginning to play politics. All of us, I think, both the opposition and the government, fortunately, look like now we were beginning to start dealing with the issue of corruption. And the opposition has always stood on a platform of a fight against corruption. And therefore, for us, it's not a new thing. So for the government, it was actually coming up as a new thing. But now when you look at which is, for me, was a very unfortunate thing, is for the office of the presidency to try and interfere with a process that's already before Parliament, because the commissioners, their issue is already before Parliament. So why are you trying to circumvent?
Allegedly, since we've not had confirmation from the presidency, it's been claimed.
Well, it's being claimed, but even with those, with the claims, what I would want to say that should that be true, I'm sure there are ways of verifying whether that is true or not. And that's why for me I'm saying if that were to be true, it would be completely unfortunate, because what the president should have done is to let Parliament deal with the issue, because the commissioners has already a petition against them before Parliament. And if that is the case, then it is true that we are trying to sweep all corruption under the carpet and create new corruption cases. And another unfortunate thing for me is when I was doing an analysis, and I remember immediately, even after giving the president the standing ovation, I said, but I hope we are not going to play politics with it. If you look at that entire list, I need to be convinced that we are not playing politics. Because I was actually doing an analysis of the standard yesterday of the entire list that you are giving, and from a political perspective, most of the people in that list are either CORD or Jubilee that is not, that is fairly aligned to CORD. And if you look at the CORD that is aligned to Jubilee, they are the ones that politically Jubilee can very easily do away with. It adds nothing to them.
But they'd argue you're the one politicizing the issue because they have their own CSs that also have been on that particular list.
Yeah, but if you listen to my argument, it basically talks to what I'm telling you. That if you look at the CSs that are there are CSs that are not, if you look at most of them, there are CSs that come from the past of Kibaki, and then there are some that are aligned to URP. I mean, if you want to play politics, we can play politics. Okay. If you do a serious analysis of that list, then I'm afraid the president is losing some of us who gave him a standing ovation.
All right.
He should stop playing politics. And then I saw the other day, for good measure, we now suddenly throw in the Muranga governor who wasn't there originally. And if what he's saying is true, then you are woodwinking the public. If you are talking about a case that was already completed, we need the president to fight corruption and to fight, the way I said in Parliament, it is a dragon that needs to be slayed from the head and with all the eggs.
Together with the eggs.
But we have not hit the head yet. Okay. And the president knows that he has not hit the head. And the head is sitting right next to him.
All right, Jeremiah Kioni, some very strong views there from Millie, saying that this, when you analyze the list, it's a political list. And of course, the government has also been accused of having a very good PR, but no action. Do you feel that this is a political list, and could it be a PR gimmick, or is the government actually cracking the whip and we're actually going to see some action?
I think one of the things is that one has to make a deliberate decision as to what side of the divide you want to be counted on. And I think, and it's true, just like Mheshimiwa has said, you can lead politics if you choose to lead politics. Fight against corruption in the past has always been lost because we have brought in politics. Every time people are in court, they will certainly belong to a political divide. And they may be more on this side or less on this side. But I think it's the resolve that we need now. And this resolve will not be coming from 100 offices. Because you can see, as Maina has said, this thing is in every corner. So there must be an individual who will decide, I'm taking this head on. If the president has decided to do that, and in my view, I think that is the case, he must be given support by those others who think we need to fight this corruption, even if it touches your brother. But every time we come to the defense of our brother and say, oh, our brothers are more in this list, that how are you to balance this? And I'm not saying that there are others who should be there or should not be there. What I'm saying is that we need to have that resolve. And I think what the Kenyans need to do is to give the president support. I don't see support coming from even his own office.
Okay.
How so?
For example, if what we saw yesterday is accurate, in the sense that people would call officers who are supposed to be fighting corruption and try to get them to resign, and these are offices that are very near the president.
But that would be working under the assumption that he is unaware of those calls being made by officials from his office.
What I was just about to say is that I'll be waiting to see him act on even those officers now.
Okay.
Because this is a battle. We cannot just allow us to lose it. We've lost it for a long time, 50 years. Somebody must take and move with it. And I be asking even members of parliament, those who care, to just allow us to move on. You will look at the constitution, you will take defense from the constitution. I say this is not provided for under the law. But as long as, when we look for a place to hide, there are more places to hide and allow corruption to move on.
Yeah, Henry, someone might argue EACC in itself has not had the confidence of many Kenyans in terms of the fight against graft. So this might be the wrong message to start then having all these calls being made to force people to resign. But is it a body as currently constituted you have confidence in? Do you think parliamentarians after all of this still need to reconstitute it?
There are two things. People must remember that as we got a new constitution, there was a process of reconstituting the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. That law was whittled down. It was made weak in the first place. So structurally, there are problems. But two, the process of also getting who were to be the commissioners was wanting, because you and me know that the chair went through a very rigorous process of people saying he has too many skeletons in his cupboard. Is he going to be able to fight this? And we seem to want to gloss over it on legalese. I hear Mheshimiwa Kioni now saying, let's not look at a place to hide. We hid under the law to say Matemo was going to deliver. Let's not ask his past in Agricultural Finance Corporation. Let's not ask all these other questions. Now they've come back to hound us, because how is he going to investigate somebody else on Goldenberg or Anglo-Leasing when they know that we glossed over his AFC case?
All right,
so that is one big challenge.
Let me stop you for a second. We'll continue with that. We're just getting some reports right now, some breaking news coming into our newsroom. Is that there's been gunmen attack Garissa University College. Heavy gunfire has been reported inside as police engage attackers. Ambulances are on standby outside that particular institutions. Again, news alert, news just coming into our studios right now is that there's heavy gunfire being reported inside Garissa University College. Gunmen have attacked that particular college. There are ambulances that are outside the university on standby. We'll continue to bring you more details as we get them. I've just actually seen another tweet, somebody, I think from there, Augustine Mullah. And if you're watching, would like to get in touch with you, could call us, we could perhaps, put our numbers on the screen. Garissa University under terror attack. Augustine is reporting or telling us from that particular location. So this is a story we'll continue to update you on as we continue with the state of the nation. Again, if you just missed that, there's a gunman attack. Gunmen have attacked Garissa University College, and heavy gunfire is being reported inside, and police are already at the scene engaging the attackers. Ambulances as well are being reported to be on standby outside the institution. Breaking news right now coming into us. We'll continue to update you as we continue with the show this morning.
Yes, so there is a structural problem. But two, there have been allegations that some of the cases the commission has been investigating, some of those people have tried either to bribe back. And these allegations have been there over time. I wonder why people in government would now want perhaps to begin saying, this is the time we want to restructure the commission, but it is also the time the president has come up with some 60-day ultimatum, which I don't know where he got it from and what was the rationale of saying 60 days. Because yes, a time frame is important. But if the president understood, remember he's the one who got the petition against the two commissioners. It is the president who had this dossier from the commission, which tells him about their structural challenges on budget, which telling them about their structural challenge on staff. And he says, you have these cases for 60 days. The reality is, he's set them to fail. So that's why, for me, I begin asking, can we have one serious line? I hear Mheshimiwa Kioni, let's all make a resolve, we are going to fight corruption. And to fight corruption, we must, by one, following the law, and two, if the commissioners are not fit for purpose, we have a process of recall. And I remember the president in his speech in jest, I think an MP chuckled and said, what would we do with the commissioners? And he said in Kiswahili, hiyo ni kazi yenu, ni nyinyi mtawaondoa. So if for sure the president reiterated that, what are these machinations that are going on, allowing or forcing these commissioners to resign? I've not had the office of the president respond to the allegations made by Commissioner Keino, which was yesterday, early yesterday. The other day evening, Commissioner Onsongo resigned, and she said she had been under too much pressure to do that. If that is in public domain, why are we going for sideshows? Because resignations, or stepping aside as we call them in Kenya, what does it do for investigative purposes? I've not heard Halake, the CEO of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, say, on the cases we've been investigating, we've been blocked from investigating PAC members. And therefore, we will not be able if they are still in office. But I asked myself, Parliament is going to go on recess after perhaps today. And yet, you're asking MPs to step aside so that what happens? You want to investigate them and they are blocking investigation? Or investigation is becoming another fad that it's something we will engage in to keep us going as we tick the days, because today we have 53 days left. All right,
Mheshimiwa Millie, given these allegations that are now coming out from the EACC that they may be an underhand playing to try and get them out of office, what would you expect the executive to do in a case like this? Because so far it is alleged. It is not anything that is confirmed. And even given the statement that she made, she said she does not want to name or put it in the public domain who these people are, who have been, who have promised her a job or whatever, if she, an ambassadorial job, if she resigns. What would you expect the executive to do in a case like this?
Well, first of all, I want to say pole to the people of Garissa for what's happened. It's very unfortunate. And we hope the government has come in very quickly to assist. Having said that, I just want to say that I'd actually said before that there's already a petition in Parliament in relation to the commissioners. So this putting pressure on the commissioners to leave is actually not correct. And that's why, even though I agree with the Kioni, that we are very, very committed to the fight against corruption. But we must do it properly. It's not like we are getting away of corruption right now. I want to laud the president for taking a move to deal with corruption, because we've always looked and sought leadership in dealing with the issue of corruption, which has been lacking. But it must be done first properly. We must do it within the law. And secondly, we must depoliticize the whole process. And so if there's even like what we say in law is that when you're doing any matter, justice must not only be done, but must be seen to be done. So even if we are dealing with corruption, we must apply the same principles. Although justice is not, should not only be done, but must be seen to be done. So when people start getting questions, and especially when there are facts behind those questions, you start getting very uncomfortable. And if you look at the first day the president raised the issue of fighting corruption and showed his commitment, he got a standing ovation across the floor, both from opposition and the other side. He was, in fact, his approval rating that day was 90% across the country. If he stood on election that day, he would have gotten re-elected across the divide.
Across the board.
Yeah, across the board. Yeah. But if you look at even opinion polls 2-3 days later, it went down. And it is not just the issue that maybe my brother is there, it's not. Kenyans are also fairly intelligent. And people are looking and seeing that there is politics at play. Okay. And for me, that's the unfortunate thing. Yeah. Let us stop politicizing. I wish the president was very serious about fighting corruption, and he would get the same support that he got on this.
But what do you expect him to do? Because yesterday he did say, and we've seen a lot of members even from court say, the strongest message would be for him to show intolerance to corruption is to fire. But how do you fire somebody who's not gone through due process? He's directed. What else would you want the president to do before I come to Kenny?
One for me is that he would put in, and I've told you before, I even said it earlier today, that one, slay the dragon from the head. He has not been brave enough to slay the dragon from the head.
Meaning what?
When you say slay the dragon from the head, what exactly do you mean? What heads are you talking about? Which head is this that we have? We don't
the head has not been slayed, and he knows what head we are talking about. There are people right in the presidency that have been mentioned in land grabbing and all manner of things. And they are comfortable. They are the ones who are sitting on a platform of morality and lecturing others about stepping aside. And he knows it. So first of all, slay that one.
And tell they the all entitled to due process? And they all entitled to due process?
Of course.
So if that has not happened yet...
Yeah, but in the same, if we were to use your argument, then in the same vein, none of the governance should be mentioned. But if we want to deal with corruption, the same way you are mentioning governance, mention the person in your presidency that is pulling you down. Right. But he is not serious, neither is he committed. Neither is he committed. And I could see what the president was doing that day. In Parliament, he said that this is a warning. And I could see he's warning the person in his presidency. We don't want him to send a warning. Act.
All right.
When you act, we'll take you seriously.
Let's continue taking this conversation further and get some of the specific cases we've seen. So the senator in Nairobi County says he stepped aside. He's written a letter to the Speaker of the Senate, Ekwe Esuro. First, there's been questions about what this stepping aside really means, whether in law it is something that is captured there. And then now he's also coming out to say the governor should follow suit and others. What do you make of this?
Allow me to just chip in that area angle that you will not be able to remove corruption from politics. You can't divorce the two. We have always said that we want to see political goodwill. It's lacking. Political support is lacking in the fight of corruption. What I think the president has done is to give that political goodwill. As to whether it is going to last the full course, we cannot say it after 48 hours. And I don't want to remove my faith in the president on this issue because I think he has done something that I think we are headed somewhere. The fact that he may not have touched the person perhaps in the minds of Mheshimiwa Mili does not mean that time is not coming. He has started somewhere. The people he has actually dealt with are very close to his office also. As to whether, and I think my friend Maina said something. I think we were in the same parliament with Mili, 10th parliament. I can't remember, I think we were almost, I think we were on the same side. And we actually said we have doubts in our minds as to whether the current chair of the commission has the capacity to deal with the corruption issues the way we understood it then. And I remember we were told that where is the passionometer? And the thing was taken back and forth. Eventually, he ended up in office. But the Hansard is there to bear us out. We actually raised our doubts as to the capacity because we understood that this corruption thing is big. It requires maybe a better resolve. But there we are now. I really don't think it is a time to dismantle the commission now, even for parliament. To dismantle the commission now when a deadline, some 60 days have been given. How we arrived at 60 days, again, a huge debate. I have no quarrel with the 60 days. But if you dismantle them today and say, we want another commission reconstituted, really, you'll be throwing a spanner in the works. And this is why I'm saying we will have to decide, irrespective of all these difficulties that surround corruption, you have to decide and say, I want to be counted this side, irrespective of the difficulties that are there. And if once we do that, it will be important we will make some progress.
All right,
I do not think that this corruption will be won in the next, anti-corruption crusade, will be won in the next 2 years. It's a crusade that must be continued. And if we give it support, if we allow the Kenyans to have a standard many of these people, if not all of them, were vetted by 11 Parliament.
Right.
They are in offices, I know Miri, they are in office through a vetting process. That vetting process is a political process because there are things that will be subjected to from a political point of view, not from a legal point of view. And if you are not able to pass from that standard, you are off. Because we may not be able to prove them in a court of law.
Maybe I could just say something in response to what Honorable Kioni is saying. And one of the things that he said is that whenever you're fighting corruption, definitely you can't do away with the politics. You can't separate it with politics. But the president must be seen to be doing away with politics. He may not do away with it, but he must be seen to be doing away with it. Just in the same way I said about justice. It's not just doing justice, but it must be seen to be done. So the president must be seen to be kicking politics out of it, and he's not doing that yet. Once he's seen to be doing that, then we'll be saying there is political goodwill. On the issue of the commissioners, if my memory serves me right, I think the day we were confirming them is the day I was actually thrown out of Parliament.
The house. That was an interesting shot.
No, I haven't seen, but I think I was actually thrown out of Parliament. And I was thrown out of Parliament because I was one of the people who wanted these commissioners not to be affirmed, because I was in the Committee of Justice and there were very serious issues. And we said, when we looked at them, when they came before us, we actually said they didn't have what it takes to fight corruption, and we needed people who had what it takes to fight corruption. But now, actually, some of us have indicated from the issues that are coming up. However, due process must be followed. You don't just wake up one day and start telling people because there's a problem, take a walk. No. These are constitutional offices, and we'll be setting a very dangerous precedent if we can be able to just tell people, because then where do we draw the line when somebody is not doing their work and when I don't like your face? Because then I can just hound you if I don't like you. Or maybe I don't like your tribe. Then I'll just hound you. That's why we put due process. And I want to agree with the Honorable Kioni that as much as this process is also before Parliament, there's going to be a bit of a challenge, especially if they leave now and we have 60 days and we have to deal. Because also if you are dealing with corruption, as much as we did champions, that champion cannot be in one person who is the director, who has also sneaked in a report that people are questioning how he sneaked in it and left others and put in others and some in very questionable circumstances. So even him, he's putting him on the spot, and I saw people from his county saying that he has political interests, so that could also be a factor for him.
We'll come to you, Maina, shortly, but would like to get an update first of all with news just coming in.
Indeed, that breaking news that you see on the bottom of your screen: gunmen have attacked the Garissa University College in Garissa town. Witnesses say that heavy gunfire can be heard from inside the institution as police engage the unknown attackers. There are also reports of explosions from inside the compound. It is not clear who's behind the attack, but we have information that there is heavy presence of both police and military who've surrounded the institution to try and rescue the situation. Now, those calling from inside the institution have indicated that there are some casualties, but KTN cannot independently confirm the number at this particular time. Garissa University College is a constituent college of Moi University. We're trying to get more information on this particular attack from our men and women on the ground, and we shall be updating you as soon as we get the information. So do stay with us for updates on that. But quite also a number of people taking to Twitter and talking about this particular attack. Augustine Mullah is one of the persons who's just been talking about insecurity alert, Garissa University under terror attack, and Garissa University under terror attack. Another one from Bethwell. And I'd also seen Alinur Naba saying, officially confirmed that attack on Garissa University started at a masjid. It will be first of such a kind in the town. Again, this is information as KTN. We cannot independently verify this particular point, but some of the tweets that are coming through. Students who escaped report that at least 5 armed men stormed facility at dawn and started their killing from masjid and boarding area. So just some of the details coming from Kenyans on Twitter. This is actually journalist Banhat who writes with Al Jazeera, who's tweeting about this as well. So we'll continue to give you more details of this breaking story as soon as we can get somebody who's on the ground to talk to us and help us understand and paint for us a picture of what is actually going on. We will do so. So do stay with us right here on KTN for more details on this breaking story. Mike.
All right, and now we'll come back to the State of the Nation. And just a quick reminder of who we have in the studio. We have Henry Maina, who's the director of Article 19, Jeremiah Kioni, who's a former MP for Ndaragwa, and Millie Odhiambo, MP from Bita. And to you, Henry, there is Governor Kidero. One of the things that he has stated that he will not step aside, as mentioned by the president, is the reason that the Constitution does put in place how one should step aside. However, we see the likes of Sonko, Senator for Nairobi, who has also now, he's come out and said, I will step aside and wait for investigations, and once my name is cleared, I'll come back. What is your take on this, and how is this going to play out, especially given that this step aside is not something that is so well defined, and what it means?
I think, one, we are losing the focus. We are discussing stepping aside as an end in itself, as a country, and taking too much of our energy to discuss whether people should step aside or not. The question we ought to be asking ourselves, are investigations going on? But because that's the question, there isn't a provision in law on how elected senators, governors, or members of parliament can step aside. So here we are going back to issues of morality, issues of individuals' conscience. And that is not something we can be prescriptive about. So as a country, let's not try and be prescriptive on matters where there is individual choice or decision making. But that does not mean that governors, senators, and MPs cannot be held to account. I think it's very clear that there are mechanisms to hold them accountable. And I would want to begin by pointing out that if you're looking specifically, say, at Governor Kidero and the allegations made against him, there are 2 or 3. 2 of those are allegations over his past position in Mumias Sugar Company.
Right.
He is not in Mumias. So if you want to overplay the issue of resignation vis-a-vis the allegation of Mumias, how is he going to impede investigation? Because remember, stepping aside is to create room for investigations to go on. Then you begin to notice that we are overplaying this resignation issue. The second allegation is purely about his signing on this contract for a metropolitan transport system, which he has done as a governor in Nairobi. But we also know, I want to give an example, that the president signed the contract of SGR, which is part of what is being investigated here on Engineer Kamau. Have we asked the president to step aside? No. So let's not politicize this. And I want to remind Kenyans that the Honorable President, he has my backing in fighting this. But when he was inducted in The Hague, he stepped down as a Minister of Finance. He did not step down as a Deputy Prime Minister, neither did he step down as an MP. This is the very president we are talking about. The same to the Deputy President. Stepped down as a Minister of Agriculture, did not step down as an MP. Why? Processes of stepping down as an MP are clearly spelled out in law.
Are they?
Yes.
Okay.
For an MP to lose their position, there are clear positions. And that's why I said, let's not get into resignations. Yeah? Let's not get into resignations. Let's get into processes that say, if Honorable Millie, who is here, and I can use her as an example, is part of the Agriculture Committee, and she's been mentioned. The first thing, we cannot induct the whole committee. We need to go back and say it is specific individuals. And that's what the president has done. He says, in my office, there were people who are responsible for SGR. In Kidero's office, who are these people who are responsible for the metropolitan thing? That is very different from, say, Isaac Ruto's indictment or allegations, which are about a lifestyle audit. And the reason as to why I speak to this, I would like to know if the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission has lifestyle audits for all public officials and state officials. Because it is only when you've done all of them and you've opened up their wealth declaration forms that then you are arriving at an indictment of one of them saying you are living beyond your means. So that is a discussion that is not going on. What can the president do and parliament help us in doing? Make those declarations of wealth forms public.
Okay.
And make the report on assessing the lifestyle audits of everyone public. Then let Kenyans begin now debating Henry is living beyond his means, Mheshimiwa Kioni is living beyond his means, and investigations are going on.
Okay.
If that is true, because we have not indicted Honorable Isaac Ruto for taking money from Bomet County. You see that? 800 or 900 million is the money we are saying. He owns those tippers and tractors, a chopper and all that. If that money was lost from the allocations we made to Bomet County, you could ask Isaac Ruto to step aside. But if he's just living beyond his means, meaning there could be other sources which we are looking at, it could be partially from the county or elsewhere. So as a person and legally, we need not to overemphasize. The issue here is not people stepping aside. The issue here is credible investigations must proceed. Where there is the ESCC, the DPP, CID are being impeded, they can sanction such a person.
All right.
Within law. Let's say you are under investigation, sanction the person who is impeding.
Let's bring in Millie on this, because you did mention the 60 days, and that's now where you're talking about these investigations, let this process take place. So you have issues now at EACC. Of course, there's a team that has been set up. They're supposed to work with the DPP on this. But how do we see this pan out? Raila Odinga, on his return from his trip abroad, came back and said, this is pretty much going to be, business as usual. All of these people will get back to office, because looking at the time constraints and also going by the capacity that these institutions have had to be able to collect the kind of evidence that would then see perhaps a successful prosecution if indeed something wrong was done in court, is in question. So what do you make of how this will work out eventually?
Well, it's a double-edged sword in the sense that, one, we need swift justice.
Correct.
So therefore, for me, then I commend time, because you don't want to put somebody's life on hold, especially an elected leader. Yet on the other hand, we know that 2 months is a very short time within which you can do investigations, and serious investigations of the magnitude that we are seeing. If you're talking about a person that is accused, especially if you're talking about lifestyle audits, and I was actually, before I realized that they were talking about Isaac Ruto and the lifestyle audit, I was saying there are so many people that we would actually question. In fact, almost 3/4 of the governors, you may raise issues across the board. And that's why some of us are pretty uncomfortable, because if you bring in Isaac Ruto on the issue of lifestyle audit, then you need to bring in others on the lifestyle audit. And for me, then the question is, if you are doing that, how do you verify that? You have to look at what they earned before, what they owned before, their means of income and all that. That takes so much time. And I don't know whether within 2 months, we are actually going to do proper investigation, so it's just going to be politics. And that's why for some of us, we are worried. If, for me, really, if the president was serious, he should have gone through this very systematically, which basically means, if it were me, we should have started by reconstituting the ethics and anti-corruption body. Then secondly, after that, give the new body a mandate to actually look at the people whose names have been thrown in there. And then they need to look at issues seriously. Not everybody whose name is thrown around carelessly is actually guilty of any form of corruption. What you need to do is, any allegation that has been made, is there what we call in law some prima facie evidence around them? Is there some basis? Is there must be a level of threshold that you are actually charging somebody over. Yes, I'd raised an issue in Parliament 2 days ago, and the Speaker gave his ruling, even though he refused to, give a very firm ruling. But one thing that I took away from him is that there is actually absolutely no allegation, no formal allegation against the Agriculture Committee. Yet, you find the anti-corruption body picked some newspaper report and went and published and said, now all the agriculture committee people, even though they have not mentioned us by name, if that were the basis, then there are about almost 20 women MPs who should be at ESCC, including myself, because the other day I saw us in the papers as some of the most immoral women. And I'm immoral because I was sexually harassed in parliament. So I should be before ESCC, if that is the basis, if they are going by newspaper cuts.
Okay, let's move on to Mheshimiwa Kioni. And one of the things that Mheshimiwa Mili has mentioned is that it's a double-edged sword. And at the end of the day, it is good to work with timelines. And the president has given a timeline. However, it is questionable how reasonable that timeline is. And one of the things that Mili had also mentioned is that he requires support. Now, how this is almost a catch-22, because if he didn't give a timeline, then of course it'll be very vague. But here we have 60 days. Do you think 60 days is enough for a good job to be done, and also not keeping on hold those who will step aside?
60 days. One is that all said and done, start somewhere. And because you have to start somewhere. 60 days is not adequate time for the reasons that have been adduced by my colleagues. But I think if maybe I am not recalling the statement right, but the president said within 60 days, investigations should have been done and concluded.
Concluded, right.
I don't think he said within 60 days, these people who have stepped aside will go back to office. So I wait to see what is he going to do with the offices where investigations will not have been concluded. And my thinking is that he should then use his position. Quite a number of the people are the people he appointed into office, and especially the senior people. He will be the one to tell them to go back to office or to hold. I would want to see him take the next action, political action, because there is an aspect of political responsibility. Right. And there is the criminal responsibility. And I think here we should be others will deal with the issues of are you criminal liable and all the rest. Let us deal with the politics of it. That's why I'm saying fighting this corruption, you are not going to move away from politics. The other thing is that most of the key people have some, like when you talk about governors, and I agree the law does not provide how do you move away members of parliament and the rest, but they are members of political parties. When we campaigned in this country, we had manifestos and saying we are not going to tolerate corruption. Right. If there was a member in our political party, however, whatever number we have, I would have expected the parties to have called the neck and say, you have been mentioned adversely, you are tainting our party, we are suspending your membership from our party. Because we are not going to wait until you are proved corrupt in court for us to do anything. Right. Then we will all be exerting pressure on this dragon of corruption, because it must be fought from all corners. I also said the other day, even the churches, they are the major recipients of the money that is stolen from these public coffers through these harambes. If they were also to say, we don't want people coming, these people who have been mentioned, we know you are still going through, we are not taking a position on your morality or the rest, but please, even harambes, keep your money
on hold.
All of us, and I'm trying to say this, the law is there. If we want to use the Constitution, if we want to use the Crimes Act and all the other statutes that we passed in Parliament, we will use them to hide. Because for us to fight corruption, the threshold must be higher, even the issue of perception. And that is why we brought in the aspect of vetting. Vetting, there is no statute that says, these are the questions you ask. Members of Parliament sit, they subject you to questioning, and they form an opinion on you, guided by some principles. Okay. If they don't raise that threshold, then you will see, and you see, I'm happy that Okemo has written to say that, allow me to clear my name. That's the threshold that we want raised, so that you can then say, I have been mentioned this way, I don't think I will ever be able to serve people, Kenyans, from this position properly. Okay. We are not going to get an agent to start it. Because all of us are in this thing. But somebody must start it, it must start somewhere, and we must give it support.
All right.
All right, we're going to continue with our discussion shortly.